Hello, everybody. My name is Gerard McCormack, or Jerry McCormack, if you wish to call me that. And I'm going to tell you about my new book, The European Restructuring Directive, which has been published by Edward Elgar. Well, the book addresses in detail this Directive 2019/1023 of the European Parliament and Council on preventive restructuring directives, restructuring frameworks, discharge of debt, and measures to increase the efficiency of restructuring, insolvency, and discharge of debt procedures. Well, that sounds a bit of a mouthful. It is a bit of a mouthful. So, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to call it the European Restructuring Directive or the Preventive Restructuring Directive. It's been called that, but in the book, it's generally referred to as the European Restructuring Directive. Well, basically, this applies across the European Union. Member states are obliged to implement it by July 2021, which is obviously coming up pretty shortly, though they may request a one-year extension from the European Commission. The UK is, of course, no longer an EU member state and is not obliged nor expected to implement the directive. But in fact, the changes brought about to UK law by the Corporate Insolvency and Governance Act 2020 have ensured that the UK is, in the event, substantially compliant. Well, the directive, in fact, owes its origins in some part to UK law because it was inspired by certain elements of the scheme of arrangement procedure. But more directly, it owes its origins, in a sense, to Chapter 11 of the US Bankruptcy Code. The directive has been referred to as Europe's answer to the US Chapter 11. It's also has certain provenance in World Bank doing business project and the UNCITRAL model law on the UNCITRAL legislative guide on insolvency. Well, I'll say something about the UK 2020 Act because this puts, in a sense, the directive in perspective. The UK 2020 Act has three features which are fundamental features of the restructuring directive as well. First of all, it has a moratorium on the enforcement of claims against the company, which is based on the existing debtor retaining control of the business. This is often referred to as debtor in possession, a debtor in possession procedure. The second element is a flexible restructuring plan procedure with provision for cram down of creditors across classes, though the court still has to sanction or approve a restructuring plan. That's referred to sometimes as cross-class cram down. And the third element is restrictions on termination clauses in commercial supply contracts. All of these aspects are prominent and important features of the European Restructuring Directive. Some elements in the UK 2020 Act are time limited. They're an immediate response to the COVID-19 crisis. Of course, in the last year, unfortunately, the COVID crisis has cast a dark shadow on events across the world. And with a view to saving life, protecting health, and safeguarding health services, countries have found it necessary to introduce either full or partial lockdown of the economy. And this has severely impacted on business activity. And the resultant impact on cash flow has pushed many businesses into financial difficulties. Governments have found it necessary to ease access to finance and to introduce other economic stimulus measures. You could argue that the measures contained in the Restructuring Directive are of assistance in this regard, but they're no means a panacea. They're not intended to address a more or less total shutdown of the national economy. Nevertheless, they do provide pointers in the right direction because they signal that businesses should be given a breathing space in times of temporary economic difficulties. Secondly, that economic vicissitude should not necessarily cause business owners to lose ownership or control of their business. And thirdly, that the combined expertise of existing management and outside professionals may provide innovative restructuring solutions. Well, all this is covered in the book. All this is covered in the book. Well, what about the inspiration from the book? Well, the inspiration for the book, in large measure, is due to research I carried out with my University of Leeds colleagues, Andrew Key and Sarah Brown, both of them I thank very much. Basically, the University of Leeds team was commissioned by the European Commission in 2014 to carry out a comprehensive analysis of restructuring and insolvency laws across the European Union, with a view to advancing a common legal framework for helping financially troubled businesses and individuals. This fitted very much into the European Capital Markets Project. It also fitted into the so-called Juncker Plan. Well, across the European Union, insolvency, financial distress has led to business closures, individual bankruptcy, and significant job losses. So this made the reform of insolvency law and restructuring law a top priority for the European Commission. As I said, it formed an integral part of the Capital Markets Union project and the so-called Juncker Plan. You could argue that the directive is a game changer. It's a bit of a football cliche, I know, but a game changer. In a sense, it brings about business rescue for financially distressed businesses and helps to relieve highly indebted entrepreneurs of their debts, giving them a so-called fresh chance, a new start free from debt. Well, the directive, as I said, applies across the European Union. It requires fundamental changes for some member states who must make substantial amendments to their laws. Other states, however, have, you might say, more robust starting points. There is, in fact, considerable optionality for states in translating the provisions of the directive into their national laws. In respect of many provisions, states are presented with different implementation options, and the book will be of assistance in this regard in guiding, as it were, states in deciding which particular provisions to adopt. It may be that more than one version of the directive will become part of the national law in a particular country. For instance, one version may be particularly appropriate for use by domestic firms, for small and medium-sized enterprises. Another version, however, may be specially designed for use by larger enterprises, and in particular for foreign firms and those transacting business across international frontiers. So it may be that more than one version of the directive is adopted in a particular member state. So you could argue that the harmonization agenda manifested in the directive is more the minimum harmonization rather than the maximum harmonization variety. Notwithstanding national implementation of the directive, there will be still considerable scope for regulatory competition in the insolvency and restructuring laws of European states. Okay, thank you very much indeed. I hope that you buy a copy of the book and you'll find great interest, maybe a little bit of amusement, and also some inspiration in the book. Thank you very much indeed. Bye.